Hi, it's Eldon from the Mind Body Project. Welcome back. Thanks for following and subscribing and liking. I do read all your comments, so please comment more. Right, so we've been talking about making decisions in a negative state equals bad decisions. And what we're saying is that when you make a decision or when you notice that you're in a negative state, you do not want to be making decisions in that state. For example, tiredness. If you're tired, then you do not want to make decisions in that state. Why? Because your rational side of your brain gets shut down. It gets shut down. When you're in some of these negative states, then your parts of your brain get shut down and you don't have access to making a good decision or a good rational decision. So higher the emotions are, then you make less, your decisions are going to be worse. So the higher the emotion, the less your brain works. Yeah, when your brain waves are lower, or when you're in a alpha state, brainwave state, or a theta brainwave state, then your decisions are going to be better. So what I've done here is I've made a list. So I've got two lists coming up. So the first one is like, so what happens if, what activities can you do to make things worse? Because a lot of you need some self-awareness. You need to realize that when you're doing certain things, it's going to make it worse. It's going to make your state worse. And then I've made a bigger list of what's going to actually help change your state or break these patterns. So the first list is making things worse. So this is how to make things worse. I've not come up with a big list here because you've got so many things that you do that make things worse. I don't really want to train you in it. Yeah, but there's some things just to point out. Number one is talking about the problem over and over again. Talking about the problem. Solutions, fine. Talking about the problem over and over again, then that actually hardwires your brain into automating that state. So in other words, I see a lot of times people do psychology or counseling where they talk about the problem, which then causes you emotional stress or emotions, high negative emotions. You do that one session, you feel upset and everything like that. You come out of there, then you go back the next week and then you talk about that problem again, and then you access the same state over again. Then you leave that week and then you come back the next week, talk about the problem again, you go into that state, which is a negative state. And what you're really doing is you're training and hardwiring your brain to automate that negative state when you don't want it to happen. That's what's happening. You're actually, if I start juggling, practice juggling, do I get better or worse at it? I get better. If I practice kick-ups, do I get better or worse? I get better. Apart from Theo Walcott. No, I'm joking. But if you access those states over and over again, then you become better at it. You become better at being negative. And that's not really the goal. So you need to, it's fine to define a problem. Go in there and define, this is the problem. Yep, that's fine. But not accessing the emotions over and over and over again, because we know in stimulus response studies that if you do something over and over again, you get better at it. So that's one of the things you don't really want to do. You don't really want to keep talking about it over and over again. So number two is eating processed foods. Now, on my depression course, which is coming out in a couple of weeks, so I go through this. Processed foods cause inflammation. Inflammation causes dis-ease. So we know that. The processing system that they use helps people, it causes disease. It causes inflammation, systemic inflammation. And we know that depression is essentially systemic inflammation, and it causes a problem. So that's something you do. And what happens when you feel negative, you want to go, oh, you know, I want to eat something to make myself feel better. You always go to a vehicle or something that you think is going to make you feel better. And a lot of people do not know 5 ways to feel good immediately that serves them well. And that's the problem. And that's why I'm coming up with a list soon to tell you about that. But most people don't know 5 ways to feel good immediately. So they go to something like alcohol, drugs, medication, which is basically drugs, and or food or cigarettes, something that makes them feel good temporarily, but then makes them feel worse later, or does more damage to the body, which gives it more inflammation. So you just got to be careful of that. And it's the same with eating sugary foods. So it's number 3, sugary foods. That's something that's more addictive. Sugar's more addictive than cocaine. But it causes a problem. Sugar causes insulin spikes, which then causes fat storage. Yeah, so again, it causes inflammation. So sugar's a big inflammatory. It causes massive problems to the brain. If the brain's not functioning properly, then you are not in a high performance state, and then you start making bad decisions because you're in a negative state. So that's going to make you feel worse. What happens is, and this is the brain getting tricked, is that the first maybe 5 minutes after you've eaten sugar, you feel, yeah, sugar. But then after a while, after about the next 10 minutes, and this is often what I get to do, I use time distortion to get people to see this, is I go, how do you feel 10 minutes later? It's like, I feel guilty, which is a negative emotion. Yeah, then you make bad decisions. Then you go, do you know what, I feel guilty, so I'm going to have some more because I feel bad. Another bad decision. Yeah, so you've got to be careful, like what this, as I said, negative emotions equal bad decisions. Right, number 4, which is drinking fizzy drinks. Fizzy drinks, sugar, and even the ones that don't have sugar and have artificial sweeteners, they're just as bad. They cause diabetes. They still cause inflammation because they've got a load of crap in them. Yeah, so it doesn't make a difference. Again, if you want to quench your thirst, then water is the best thing you can have for that. And this is the same with like drinking things like too many teas and coffees. Again, more bad decisions. We've mentioned it. Alcohol, number 5. When you're in a negative state, that may seem like it's going to do something good for you, but does it? How do you feel the next day? You feel even worse. So this is to do with time again. So depending on, if you drink a beer, yeah, I feel alright now, I can forget about it. But then over time, the actual result, the end result is that you feel worse, and people get tricked. The brain gets tricked into go, well, it made me feel a little bit better, and that's how people become addicted to things like that, alcohol. Yeah. Drugs is exactly the same. So you hey, I feel really great, but then it's like, I feel terrible now. I feel terrible. And so the end result of that whole process that you've just done is you feel worse, and therefore you make what? More bad decisions. Yeah, I think I need to take it again. Yeah, that's the same. Another thing that's going to make things worse for you is when you analyze your life. When you're in a negative state, I feel really, really depressed. Let me think about my life. Then all of a sudden you're going to look at your life and go, oh, I shouldn't have done that, I feel that's bad, I'm crap at that, I'm useless at that, I can't do that right. And that's why you're saying that? Because you're in a negative state. If you're in a high performance state, you don't think that way, because you have more access to your brain. Yeah, it's just completely different. When you're tired, especially when I'm tired, then all of a sudden I'm sitting there going, oh, you know what, this is oh, I'm doing this rubbish, I'm doing that rubbish, I could do better at this, and then all of a sudden my brain clicks and goes, you're in a negative state, Eldin, you're in a negative state. And I go, let me stop there and just go to sleep and do something completely different, which we're going to come on to, by the way. But analysing your life, that's not going to make you feel better when you're in a negative state. So don't do it. Save that for another day. Save that for a different state of consciousness. Making any decisions, I've already said the whole thing is about making, so any decisions that you make, you do not want to be making them in that state. So do not do that, because you're going to make things worse for yourself. So we know that. Watching the news, that's going to make you feel worse, because then you're going to, a lot of people watch the news in a negative state and then they overgeneralize and think that that's a representation of the whole world. That's how the world is. That's what the news. Yeah, the news knows that you've been conditioned at an early stage in your life for negativity, because when you was at school, you get marked. When you got your work back, you got told what you got wrong. No one focused on what you got right. So at an early age, you focus on failure and negativity and what's wrong. And that's why you go to the drawers when there's something wrong. You don't go and look for things when you're feeling in a good state. You know, hey, I want to progress from here. I want to move on from here. It's only when things are in a bad state that you actually then want to take some action, because you've been conditioned to do that. So watching the news. So again, that's another bad decision. Talking to toxic people. So when you're in a negative state, then you do not want to be talking to toxic people, or people that were energy drainers, or people that are going to just make things worse. Yeah, or cause a conflict. So you don't want to do that either. So that's another thing that can make things worse for you as well. So that is a list. There's loads and loads of other things that you do not really want to do whilst you're in a negative state, because they you have those, and you probably do those, and you probably know what they are. But I just want you to understand that this process is like when you're in a negative state. Yeah, because we all get into them. But when you're in that state, any of the negative states, negative emotions, then you do not want to make big life-changing decisions whilst in that state, because you're going to create more pain whilst you're in that state. You're going to create or make a decision or take some action where you are just going to create more pain in your life. So you don't want to do that. And then you'll get into a negative state because you've created the more pain. Yeah, it just it starts to spiral. Let's stop that. Let's stop the spiral. Let's stop the negativity there. Let's say, right, I'm negative in the state, do not take any actions. Or in fact, you can take some, but these are ones that are going to break you out of the state. But you do want to be analysing your life in a negative state. So we'll leave it for there, and then I'll talk about things that you can do that actually will serve you well.